If you can focus so sharply on the opportunity, if you can focus so sharply on the spots that are safe to go, you can cross anything. But if you look through the ladder to the bottom and you look to the left and you look to the right and you will start wondering about everything that can go wrong and what will you do if they go wrong, very unlikely that you will manage to cross. And there are multiple, it's not like one or two of them. There are lots of these, and some of them are more treacherous than that. And by the way, all the photography that you see here is possible only in spots which are safe enough to actually even take a picture. So most of the most treacherous places you really don't have photography because, one is concentrating on staying alive and one is concentrating on crossing those spots and not possible to take photographs because ledges can be as little as 4 inches, 6 inches wide and about 100-meter drop to the right and ice wall to the left, and there are no photos of those things. So all of these ladder crossings require that focus on that piece of aluminum which is possible to step on, and it'll let you cross. But if you're going to look all over the place and calculate every other risk at that time. So I want to say something about the relationship with risk in life and in business and in everything else that we do. It is always a battle between, how to handle the risk, how to manage the risk, how to calculate the risk. And my experience is that you can't be calculating all the time. There are parts when you calculate risk, and then there are parts when you act on the decisions that you made. And that time, no matter what it seems like, the decision is made and you're going through. And that optimism in life, I think, adventure in general, I think is a whole collection of experience around a whole lifetime where somebody has gone through situations which seem like a life and death situation, and you may or may not cross over and may not see tomorrow morning. And then all of a sudden everything works out. And when people say, do you have experience, you're going up the mountain, Mount Everest, etc., the experience really, I think, is not so much about the technical aspects of climbing a physical ice wall or a rock wall. The experience really is about how comfortable are you with extremely threatening situations. How comfortable are you with extremely discomforting personal situations, whether it's temperature, whether it's your headaches, whether it's your loss of appetite, loss of sleep, loss of whatever else. So all of those experiences that you are not going to be thrown off your goal just because, all of these feelings are brand new for you. So that experience, that clubbing of those experiences, and I think when you are dealing with larger life goals, it's the same thing. We have to be mindful of how things have worked out for you in the past. And the ability to focus on the opportunity, the ability to focus on what can be done and what should be done and what must be done is a huge gift which allows you to actually get past the most trying situations even before you realize you're done with it. So this is, and helps us in the conversation later. This is Camp 1 at 20,000 feet, the little yellow specks. It's a very, very dangerous place. All this benign looking landscape is actually, littered with crevices. It's not advised and not allowed to float around here or there on the camp. You have to be always roped up. You should always be going in at least 2 of you, because if somebody falls through a crevice or something else happens, then there should be at least somebody to say that something like this has happened. But typically you stick to a script. One thing that I missed mentioning I'll take you back to this night climbing slide. The very first night we were going up, about 2 hours from the camp, the whole of my left leg actually went through the floor, the ice, and got soaked in this ice cold water, and outside is -25. And because the whole leg went through right up to the thigh, so the water went into the boots, and I had a soaked left foot. And even though they pulled me out, obviously I cried, and I cried as in like I reached out for help, and I was roped up anyway. I was going to go inside the ground or something, but they pulled me out. And this is one of those things which I've called later on expected to deal with the unexpected. Now this is in the middle of the Khumbu Icefall. Base camp is 2-3 hours away. The Camp 1 is another 8 hours away, and you have a soaked left foot, and it's -25. So this is a perfect recipe for getting frostbites. Because essentially frostbite is actually a latent heat burn. We'll not go into the technicals of frostbite. this was the very first night I'm climbing through this ice fall. And then I took a call to go back to base camp for that night, dry up my stuff, dry up my equipment, and then I followed the very next day. So I got separated from my team in that sense. But it's an example of how things happen without advance notice, of course. And we all get those situations in whatever other endeavors we are pursuing. There is hardly anybody who can say that they never had to face something like this if they were facing a goal which was intimidating enough. So this is a beautiful afternoon on Camp 1 after the following day when I got there. I would like to say here, now that you've gone up the Khumbu ice fall, about 15% people actually decide to quit the expedition after the first run up to the base Camp 1 and back. First meeting with the Khumbu ice fall, 15% of the people who have prepared, who prepared physically, who've spent a huge amount of money to be there. The Nepalese government itself charges about $15,000 per person as between royalty and fees. And typically at least between 40 and 50,000 US dollars have been paid upfront for an expedition like that. In spite of all of that, one meeting with the Khumbu ice fall, one night with the Khumbu ice fall, and you were like, that's it. This is not what I signed up for. This is not what I'm going to do. And that is a result of, I have to say, lack of passion, lack of preparation in the sense of knowing what you are getting into, being aware of it, not taking it lightly. All of these nonsense things that float around on social media, oh, you can pay your way and you can go up the Mount Everest by paying money and so on. That's nonsense. You can pay money, yes, but that doesn't help you to go up the mountain. So none of these easy, options on any intimidating ideas, on any audacious goals. There are no shortcuts to this thing. And there's no fake it till you make it. All those kind of catchy phrases don't apply. You can't fake it for 8 weeks, and you can't fake it at minus 30 degrees, on those ice walls. So this actually happens there. And this you will see a lot of times in your real lives. I went to IIT, and when we went through that preparation, and you always see the data on how many millions of people are applying for the exam and how many few hundreds they will take, etc., etc. But if you actually break it down, and you break it down in any field, whether you are sports, business, the real competition is between a few thousand people. The rest of them are like also ran folks. They're not even thinking they'll make it. They're just going through the motions because society said so, parents said so, everybody else is doing so. So all of those guys get filtered pretty quickly. And real life also, you will see the same thing happens. Whether you are in any competitive thing, including politics, for instance. I mean, people get into it thinking, and then later on, you figure out what it takes really to get into politics. So the previous image, when we were sitting on base camp, an avalanche struck. And I have a live video of the avalanche because I was right there and we were just having lunch. And I hope this is yes.
We're having lunch at Camp 1 and one avalanche after the other. This one is almost approaching Camp 1. I can hear it from something from... Huh? Camp 1 में आ गया क्या?
So I'm asking my Sherpa, is it really onto us in Camp 1? But fortunately for us, it was about 5 degrees away.
Massive.
From these couple of dozen tents that you can see in the picture. A small change in direction and probably this talk would not be happening today.
Coming from Nukse.
So these are realities that we are dealing with in life, in all our endeavors, which challenge our determination to be following through with a goal. It's a beautiful shot I got the same evening. During the day, a threatening avalanche. In the evening, a gorgeous sunset. Then as you go onwards, let's have a look at this little video, which will give you a sense of what I mean by the power of focus, how very small ledges are to be crossed, and they can only be crossed if you will only look at the 6 inches where your foot can actually rest. Because the rest of it, there is no other place. And if you look too much to every possible danger and always calculating all the things that can go wrong, it's unlikely that this is going to be for you.
आई गया वो रास्ता बहुत बारीक रास्ता है
I'm like, oh, बहुत बारीक है.
दोनों कैसे
You see the drop to the left. This is me, so I'm going slowly. My Sherpa is ahead of me, makes it look very easy. But for you and me, I assure you, it's intimidating. And then it kind of ends into a ladder straight away. So it doesn't even let you stand for a second. You will see what I meant when you see down the ladder. This video will have that view of it. And to maintain your physical as well as mental balance while going over these things over and over again, it's not like one time and ho gaya abhi chalo bach gaye. Every couple of minutes it comes up. And you have to go over the Kumbu ice fall about 6-7 times. It's not like a one time over the ice fall. So it's like 10 ladders into 6 runs. So you're like going over these 60s. By the evening of the expedition, you're kind of whistling over these things. But the first few ones are treacherous. Now look at this. The crevasse at the bottom is obviously waiting to swallow you if you would like to. And you see the difference in how the Sherpa walked and how I am walking. I'm like very, very, feet are almost trembling, almost there. And it's only a few steps. And then the next of our teammates is coming over. So I think if you got the idea, we can save time. This is a 2-minute video. The point I was making was that not the ladder crossing on the Mount Everest. Okay, I don't know if anybody here is planning to go, but it doesn't matter. You are crossing these ladders in whatever else you're doing. The ladders are a part of your life. You may not look at them as these, but they very much are there. And they present themselves quite frequently. And they're never going to go away from your lives. But the trick to go over them is in the darkest of those moments, the darkest of those things where it's like almost you're giving up or almost giving up, is about how to find that one little piece of the aluminum, the shiny aluminum, which lets you cross. So 99% of that space all around you is just not where you can put your finger. But if you pick out that one little piece, you can go through. And the skill of being able to look for that piece, being able to believe in that piece, being able to believe in your own ability to find that piece, makes the difference between, which goals are achieved and which ones are given upon. Sorry, this last picture is a beautiful shot of the Camp 2 of Everest Base Camp. This is like an advanced base camp. It is also the last place where we actually have stored oxygen. There is a kitchen tent. We get warm food here. After that is Camp 3, Camp 4, and Summit. And beyond Camp 2, life changes one more time very, very dramatically. Like one time is the base camp, and then you go over the Kumbu Ice Fall, Camp 1, Camp 2. And then after Camp 2 is this lovely feature on the mountain, which is called the Lhotse Face. It's nearly a vertical ice face, blue ice. Blue ice is the ice which is permanent ice cap. It doesn't melt. It's very, very hard. So our crampons, the spikes on our boot, if you just put them up on blue ice, they don't stick. You have to kick and find a spot for them, and that takes away a lot of energy because you are not just walking over it. It's already, we're dealing with 23,000 feet and blue ice and a vertical wall. And in this very picture, sorry, I wanted to show you the pointer. So I don't know if this, with all these lights, can you see the thing? But this was Camp 2. We basically left from there. You walked over this relatively gentle slope. You can see these are actual human beings, but I don't know if it can be made out on this screen. So somewhere here, it changes suddenly into this vertical ice face. And it's about 1,200 feet. And it is like one more test of your energy levels, of your determination to do this, because by the time you really reach Camp 3, you are literally a spent force. And you don't think that you can carry on anymore. And after this, there is also no more rest, no sleep, no food, because it's very high altitude. There is anxiety of not only success, but also of the threats that are all over the place. The Camp 3 itself is on the slope of the mountain. They actually dig out some spots, and somehow a tent is barely perched there. And anytime you are moving, even if you go out to pee, you have to be roped in, because, you know, in case you fall off this wall, there is nobody, no one who can even probably find you actually. So this is a sense of what Camp 3 looks like. You can see it's on a very steep slope of ice. These boulders of ice have been moved around to make some room for pitching tents. You know, hats off to those people who actually did this in the earlier years, in the 50s, in the 60s, because, you know, today we have a lot of technology, weather forecast, our equipment is a lot more sophisticated, lightweight. I mean, look at the whole Himalayan suit barely weighs anything. The heaviest equipment that we have is probably the rope and the metal parts and the boots. The boots tend to be heavy because they have to be. But all our warm clothing is like super light. This is, in fact, I think a video of sunset on Camp 3.
Okay, Camp 3 sunset. We left in the morning.
So that is Camp 2.
5.5.
This whole thing is that same tongue of ice which I have marked out in the beginning.
Looks face. And then,
so Camp 3 is actually two clusters of tents. There was the lower cluster, and this is Mount Everest. So you can see that we are only 2 days away, and this is still looks so far and so huge and so unachievable. Gives you a sense of what it looks like to climb on that face. This is onwards from Camp 3. This yellow rock wall is called the yellow band. Are there any people here who kind of attempted or plan to attempt, or anyone? We have one person. Attempted or plan to attempt? Awesome. And how about Everest Base Camp? How many have gone to Everest Base Camp? Yeah, that's a lot of people. Lovely. So this feature, this geographical feature, it's called the yellow band. It's actually a band of this yellow rock which actually goes through the whole range. And the problem with this, it looks very innocuous, but it's a very, very difficult spot. Because now you have crampons on your boots, things which are supposed to help you with ice, which get embedded in ice and give you a grip. And obviously they will not get embedded in the rock. They will actually skid on the rock. And there is no chance to take them off, because you can't sit there with your gloves out in -25 and try to get rid of that and try to put it back. So the way we have to do it is basically just hold on to the rope very tightly and go gingerly over the rock, and you know, if you skid or you fall, you sort of hold yourself and you kind of keep going. And on the way down, it's even more treacherous, because when you're going up, you know, you're at least going against gravity, so there is some sort of a grip. There is the sprocket wheel which holds you in place. But when you're going down, gravity already is pulling you down, and in some places, you know, the step can be very, very, you know, deep. So 4 foot on the on the leg and one step, and then you go. The whole thing just takes you along, and you fall down a few times, and your arms actually get a lot more tired than your feet, because you're holding yourself with the rope all the time, and the blood circulation because you're also scared, right? So you're holding it like and all the time, and you can't wrap it around because the whole blood circulation will get stopped. So you hold it, but you still have to grip it. So it's a lovely feature on it. This is a beautiful photograph, and it says a lot more than it shows. So this is the summit of Mount Everest, right here. This is called the plume of Mount Everest, the clouds flying off the summit of Mount Everest. It's a mix of cloud and snow, and the snow basically flies off, and when you see the plume, it's an indicator of the wind speeds in that area. So when you have the plume, you know that the summit is inaccessible. It's beautiful, but what it's telling you actually is that this is how ferocious the winds are up there. And all of this talk, I want to share with you something which you see a lot on social media about how there are queues on Mount Everest and how so many people are going and how it's suddenly become a Vaishno Devi temple and bullshit like that. The reason the queues are there is that because of the weather forecast technology that is available these days, we are able to know to some degree of precision which are the accessible days. When is the summit accessible? And the accessibility is defined as low precipitation and wind speeds of less than 35 kilometers an hour. There's no stable, no wind, all of that is not there. But below 35 k an hour, we say, okay, that's acceptable, that you have to deal with that much. So the year we climbed, there was only 3 nights of summit access, out of which one night was very early, was 14th of May, and the teams were not ready. The other 2 nights were the 20th and 21st of May. So now all of a sudden you have only 2 nights when everybody needs to go. So that is what causes the so-called queues, because as you have seen in many places, there is no place to overtake somebody. It's like a bridge traffic almost through to the top. It's on a single rope. So if there is somebody slow, sick, scared, they're blocking the whole thing and everybody else is waiting behind them. That vertical ladder spot that we shared in the beginning was a huge stopping point, because that takes a long, there's 3 ladders on top of each other at about 19,000 feet altitude. It looks much easier than really it is. So all of those things cause the blockage. And the seasons where the summit access is 7, 8 days, 10 days, we don't have these lines. We don't have those many lines, because then the crowds are distributed those days. And we also have lesser accidents in those seasons. But you can't predict that in the beginning. That's so much so with all the other goals that we try to deal with. There are things which will always emerge. And in spite of all the technology, that doesn't mean that there's some sort of a guarantee of that forecast. That forecast is valid for the next 10 minutes. And the rest of it is on you. In fact, when we got there, I'll tell you what happened. So this photograph is another important photograph, because somewhere around here, I let my Sherpa go. I said, you go to camp. I'm coming slowly. And all of a sudden, I realized that it's becoming very difficult for me to walk. I was walking. It's difficult in any case, but it got exceptionally more difficult. And I didn't figure out what happened. And I just pulled up my pressure gauge, and I suddenly saw that there is no oxygen in my tank. And that was the reason I was struggling so much for every single step from that point. And this is 8,000 meters. And tonight is the summit climb. So basically, when you get to Camp 3, you get there late afternoon. And then the same night you go to Camp 4. You get to Camp 4 early in the morning, and then you rest in the afternoon. And then in the late afternoon, early evening, you go onwards for the summit. So in the last, let's say 40, 50 hours, there is, I would hate to guess, maybe 5, 6 hours of sleep, if at all, because there is obviously lots of things in your mind and body, and with that altitude and with no appetite, and so you're lying around in the sleeping bag somehow, waiting for the watch to show time to move. You don't really sleep much, and you don't eat much, obviously, at that height. So oxygen runs out, and I am now, what should I do? It was not that far from the camp. It was another 45 minutes with oxygen. So without oxygen, it will be much more. So I kept trying to struggle my way up, and then some of the other mountaineers said that no, you must wait because you will get completely exhausted if you try to do this. So somebody should get you some tank somehow. So the Sherpas that were, because in so many days you become a little familiar with who's which Sherpa and which Sherpa is from which team, and so some of them knew my Sherpa. They say we'll go and send somebody. So I kind of hung around there, took some pictures. If you're not moving around so much, then you're okay. And trying to move is a spot. So the parallel I would draw is that there are these spots where sometimes the idea is not always only moving, only further, only ahead. You know, there is the value of that pause. There is the value of taking good advice to say, okay, you know what, this is the time to actually hold on a bit, hold tight, let the situation change, and then we'll carry on. Huge parallel with so many. And sometimes, you know, today, somehow I think most of us in this crowd, when we were growing up, we didn't hear the phrase mental health. But in the last 10 years, we hear it much more than I would like to hear it. But however, it's a reality, and mental health gets affected by these kind of things around us, and they also get affected by, you know, actions of other people, and then they start influencing our own actions. And so things like, you know, an avalanche happening, your leg going through the ice, your oxygen running out at 8,000 meters one night before the summit, these are things which throw you off balance. And they can, if they are allowed to get internalized, they can actually, you know, encourage you to turn around and go back. But they pass away. You just hold on for a couple of hours or a couple of minutes, and then they go away, and then you're back in action mode. This is just a gorgeous photograph of sunset from Camp 4. Camp 4 is 8,000 meters. So 8,000 meters, as many of you might be aware, there are only 14 peaks in the whole world which are above 8,000 meters. So when you are camping at 8,000 meters, you are actually camping pretty much as high as you possibly can. Nowhere else in the world is a campsite which is higher than this altitude, as far as I am aware, because all the other mountains are obviously lower, and this is the final summit camp on Mount Everest. The other side of that story is that there's another 1,000 meters to climb the next day, 8848, okay, 900 meters to climb. So 3,000 feet, almost 3,000 feet of a vertical climb only on the last night. And you have been going for the last 45 days. And in the last couple of days, you barely slept or eaten. This is no longer a physical endeavor. This is no longer a physical endeavor. Because I can't stand here and imagine that I can pull off something like that just physically. And it's a big, big parallel to everything else that we face as a challenge. That we are going to be called upon to pull out from somewhere inside us, or to pull out from somewhere in the universe, something which is more than just physical. Whether you call it faith, you call it the blessings of your parents, you call it, you know, your optimism, your determination, you know, you can choose your vocabulary around it. But it is beyond physical, that much is for sure. And this is when it is good to be conscious of that phase where you can't evaluate it rationally. It's a part of what you committed yourself to do. And if you keep going, someone as ordinary as me can reach there. I assure you everybody can do everything. So this is that lovely sunset. And then what happened after this? Massive storms that night. So we're supposed to climb up that night. Sunset is kind of calm and peaceful. We're ready to go. We'll be leaving in the next 1 hour. And the wind started. And the way it went, it was like it will fly out with 8 of us in the tent, and the tent's not going to stick here. It was crazy. And this was supposed to be a calm weather night. It was supposed to be summit accessibility and so on. No way was it possible to access the summit that night. So now what happens? So now you have to be spending an extra night at 8,000 meters. It's also officially called the death zone on Mount Everest. It's not really a place for human existence. It's not a place where you can do without an oxygen cylinder. Oxygen obviously is in finite supply because, you know, you have cylinders which are there, and you know, if you're going to use them for one extra day, then you probably not have enough left for the following day. So we are left with no other choice but to say that we will attempt this the following day, and we will come back tonight, back into our huddle, back into our tents, brave through the night of storm. And in fact, till the very next day, even till late afternoon, it was very, very stormy. We were pretty much sitting inside our tents with our masks and with our. But here is another lesson that I would like to bring forth. We, in our own planning, had taken 3 extra oxygen cylinders per person. So typically, an Everest expedition takes about 6 cylinders per person. That doesn't account for any of these kind of extra requirements for any reason. We had taken 9 per person because, we were kind of aware of this situation where somebody might need extra oxygen, somebody might get sick, somebody might need rescue. So we had budgeted for it, we had organized for all of that. So we had the means to actually stay there an extra night. It cost you a lot of energy, cost you a lot of enthusiasm, because 24 hours, 26 hours in that spot are not the ideal thing to be, but we did have that. For a lot of expeditions, that night was the conclusion of their summit pursuit because they didn't have the extra oxygen. And if they're going to sleep through the night with oxygen, then the following night they have nothing more left to go up to the summit. So a lot of people had to turn around and go back that night, the following day. But we went up the following day. And again, as I said, the climb happens at night. So, from Camp 4 up to the top is about 6 hours. This is when you get to the balcony. And then from the balcony, we change the first oxygen cylinder here. And you keep going through the night. You can see here how vertical it is. You can see the headlamps at the bottom. So there are these phases which are very, very sharp vertical climbs. And then, what I say, the most difficult to see sunrise nearly from the top of the world. Sun comes over the Tibetan plateau, and this is the whole of this gorgeous, Tibetan plateau in front of your eyes. And the whole night has been, kind of attacking you in all directions. And somehow, when the sun comes up, you feel a lot more optimistic. You somehow feel very energized. There is not much rationale behind it because anyway, it's same cold. You are anyway walking only on your headlamp. But there are these things that happen along these journeys which somehow give you back some degree of optimism and give you back some degree of energy to say, okay, this is what we are into, and all of a sudden it's also visible where you're going further up. And I'll tell you about that story in a little while. But look at this lovely view, which is still the sunrise over Makalu. And this spot here is a spot, I don't know if you can read, but if you can't, I'll read it out for you because I'm sure people at the back can't read. So this spot here is from what is called the South Summit on Mount Everest. So the South Summit is like a fake summit because when you're on the slope, you sling this one as the summit. But this is not the summit is here. But because you are on this slope, you don't see this spot. So when you get here and you're almost dead, and then you say, oh my God, this is like not here, this is there. You're aware of that thing. It's not that it's news to you. But this is what life brings to you over and over again in your real life pursuits. You think that something will get over at this point. You think that this will be achieved right now. And all of a sudden when you get there, the goalpost has already moved. But let's read the few things which I have written because this is all very internal to me. This is all very personal. It's not just a caption of a photograph. It's the feelings. It's the war within. It does not matter if you are totally exhausted, dehydrated, freezing, hypoxic. Hypoxia is lack of oxygen. Hypoxic or hungry or anything worse. You must remain super alert and at top performance mode, or you will pay with your life. That's the deal. Take it or it will take you. That's what you sign up for when you sign up for a shot at placing foot on the top of this world. This is pretty much the last hurdle of a patch before you kiss the summit. It reveals itself all of a sudden after the first South Summit step. And one look at it sends a sharp shiver down your spine before you piece your courage together and fight on. Look at the little people which are climbing on this, what is called the cornice climb. The path is nothing more than a few inches wide, and you have already been going for the last 12 hours. So we left summit camp at about 6:30 p.m. in the evening. We finally reached the summit at 7:30 in the morning. So 13 hours of the climbing through the night, and this is the last about an hour or so of that climb. So your energy levels, as I said, it's all metaphysical. It's all, it's there. It's just, when you run ultra marathons, there is no physicality of running 95 kilometers and 74 kilometers. It's just the body keeps going. And this is, now I'm already actually at the summit, and this picture I've taken from the summit at the back, and this is, this is my photograph on the summit. And thank you. And I would like to read what I wrote in my book and what I feel genuinely about this whole thing. My goal was to prove to myself what ordinary people like me can do with preparation and passion. I'm no fitness freak or a sportsman, etc. I'm a genuinely ordinary chap and a mountain lover. I made it. So that really means most people can. And that's my message to everybody here. I made it to this one. Anybody can make it to anything. Go for your Everest, my friends. Whatever that happens to be, there ain't no mountain too high you cannot reach. And this expedition is what, if it taught me something, it taught me mostly this. I've broken down the parts to it. I will enthrall you now with a short video which I was fortunate to take on the summit of Mount Everest with the 360-degree views. We are also lucky that morning that there were the views, because typically it's blizzard, it's like all over the clouds, you see nothing. You get there and you see nothing. So it's quite, people have to deal with that feeling too, but we fortunately were luckier than that. So let's look at this little video. So this is the summit of Mount Everest. And you can see the clouds were already coming from Tibet, and within the next 30 minutes, there was no visibility at all, practically. And this is a beautiful view from the summit. You can almost see the curvature of the planet. In my book, I have actually marked each of these summits that are visible in this picture. They look like little hillocks, but these are all massive mountains which people somehow aspire to get to. And this is a very, very special photograph. It's a hard photograph to get. Most people, by the time they're going down and they're reaching camp, almost they're completely spent. There are no more pictures of this area. But this is a photograph where you see this part is Camp 4. This is a summit camp. So I'm coming down from Mount Everest. This mountain is Mount Lhotse, is the 4th highest mountain in the world, 8,600 meters. So now you understand why the wind. So these two massive mountains on both sides, and this camp is on the shoulder between the two. That's why it's called the South Col. So it's on the southern face of Mount Everest. It's in the col between two massive mountains. So even a slight movement of, wind will become a lot more multiplied in this venturi which gets formed, because the two mountains don't let the wind pass through. So everything goes through this one only. So it is a treacherous place. And on the way back, as I said, the weather was bad. And this is another short video that I will play. This, I think, is the last video. You see how the vertical drop is? This is my boot, and you can see the rope is taut. And this is where there is a hold up, because this is again, further down, this was the rock face, not that one, but another one. And that slows down everybody, because then your crampons are not able to grip. And you have to hold on with your arms, which are already almost not there. And this is where my Sherpa actually sort of walked away. So after this, I came back on my own the last 6 hours. So it's a short video which we'll play, which will give you a sense of what was happening there. So, the weather has obviously changed completely. And there are some climbers waiting behind me, because there is this massive hold up, about maybe 30 people there. And my Sherpa said, I'll go and look at it and I'll see what happened. And he actually just walked off. And after that, I never saw him till the next morning. So the final 6 hours, I'm left to myself. And by the way, I missed telling you this very important thing. The night that we went up, after stopping a night at Camp 4, our main guide also disappeared. So our main guide disappeared the final night that we were supposed to climb up the Mount Everest. But after the stop on camp, I think somebody bribed him to go up, try that night, because they knew that they won't be able to go up the following night, and somehow he took supposedly $10,000 for that job. And nobody knows whether they made it to the summit or not. But anyway, the guide kind of abandoned our expedition for the $10,000. And the following day, we went without the main guide. On the way back, my Sherpa also left eventually, and after the 18 hours of that walking on that mountain, and last little bottle of oxygen left, I was sort of left abandoned. But anyway, everything works out when you let it work out. This is actually a final photograph of being already down Camp 2, because I did not want to get into many details of the descent. We've already done the main thing. I'll share a nice photograph of my family. My wife and my daughter, they came to receive me in Kathmandu. Thank you. This is how I looked when I had just come down from the mountain. This is my mom. She's here today. We should give her a big hand to be here with us today. And and my father is here today too. And I have a picture of him, opening a bottle of champagne when the news was there. And obviously everybody is very nervous. And you can see how relieved she is to have us back. This is at my home when I'm coming back. And now let me take you through the lessons, even though I've talked about them, but let's just recap. And we do have a few more minutes to recap this. And this is the most important part. Now I want you to stop thinking about the Mount Everest, stop thinking about all the thrills of the climbing, etc., etc. But let's get to what is in it for us. What's in it for you, for you, for you? What is it? What the hell is all about? So this is a small picture that I said the first thing, passion plus preparation is equal to performance. Young people, students, or whoever else would like to make a note, it's worth noting, although I'll share a PDF with somebody, and if they want to take an e-copy. Physical copies of the book, unfortunately, are finished now, unless we reprint, but I'll share an e-copy with the officials and whoever wants to approach them. So passion plus preparation is equal to performance, and we often see people, people feel that they are passionate about something, but they're not doing much about it. Without preparation and sacrifice, passion does not yield much. When preparing or going becomes tough, our passion can push us through. Otherwise, we may give up easily, which I have shown you during the whole thing. So it takes both on mega missions, passion and preparation. Passion is proven by sacrifice, which means sacrifice other things, prepare hard. When you're well prepared, your optimism is natural. You're not prepared, you can't fake it till you make it. I mean, there's no such thing. Avalanche is coming towards you, what will you prepare? What will you fake? Action 2, as I mentioned, this is also, I've taken a picture of the ladder only. Our actions depend on our focus. Both negatives and positives are always present. Where we choose to focus determines how we act. This is a key line. Please review this in your mind. Where we choose to focus determines how we act. If there is one thing in life all of us know very well about, it's this one. There are very delicate and dangerous phases where danger lurks everywhere except the few inches we can step on. If our focus is sharp enough to see only the safe spot and ignore the rest, we can move onwards. Otherwise, we will freeze or fall. The power of our focus can lead us out of the most difficult circumstances. So it's a key learning, and it's something which is like every single day, right from your morning walks to what to eat, what not to eat, what to drink, what not to drink, who to meet, who to not meet. Everything is a question of, what are we thinking about. I had shared this earlier. Scale need not share you. This is a photograph of the Everest from Camp 3. Now you can see, does it look like something which we will be climbing tomorrow night and you will be there on the top of that summit within the next, sort of 36 hours? So when we are facing a massive and complex task like Everest, one can't afford to be afraid of scale. This positive mindset is crucial at the beginning of the project and all the way through till the end. The scale of it should enthuse you, not deter you. Obviously, as we know, no guts, no glory. one step at a time. Again, the most common, I mean, there is nothing brand new that I'm saying really, focus, one step at a time, scale, this, that, and the other. But I think when you internalize it in a context of an expedition like Mount Everest, then they become, in my book, I've called them brain tattoos. And it is something which happens all the time. I do some projects and I do my work, and even writing this book, I wrote another book after that on scaling small businesses. It takes 2-3 years to write a book. But you keep going, and one step at a time, somehow you get there. So a big task seems difficult till you break it down into smaller steps. Common sense, everybody knows it. We all keep getting reminded about it. Once the steps are decided, one needs to keep putting one step ahead of the other. You can walk, run, or crawl, but you need to keep moving forward, and that alone can lead to success. I want to share one more little sort of math around what I figured out there. And on any larger, longer mission, I think the phase between 40 to 80% of that mission is the critical period when a lot of things are deterring you from moving forward. In the beginning, you're very enthusiastic, you're very energetic, and you keep going, and sort of that momentum of enthusiasm and excitement carries you through. 40% of it is over, and you are nearly dead, and then you look at this thing, and this is too far, this is too much left, this is like only, this is way too far away. And I think that is the time which filters out the doers from the talkers. Because the talkers at that time start to look for excuses. Oh, my stomach is not well, the Sherpa is not good, the rope is not good, the arrangements are not good, I'm going to go back. I mean, I saw all those things happen there. And I think at that phase, if you just put your head down and say one step, stop evaluating all the time. Evaluation has to be spaced out. It can't be a constantly, because there are phases when you just have to do it. Just do it. I mean, that whole Nike line is a very powerful line, to be honest. But then what happens if you carry through this phase, and then by and by you reach the 70-80% kind of mark. And then all of a sudden you're energized again, because now it seems very achievable. Now it seems very doable. Because now it's like within reach. Now it's not so intimidating anymore. So that one step at a time philosophy is very important to remember on anything long, complicated, intimidating, difficult, that it is not about how you will gobble up the whole thing in one shot. You will not. You can't. So expect the unexpected. I gave you enough examples. Everest taught me that unexpected things can happen at any time. This is when I'm sitting waiting for the oxygen cylinder. This photograph is I've actually almost taken a selfie. And by the way, to take all these pictures, take off your mitten, take off your internal glove, quickly take a photograph, put it back in 15 seconds, and chuck the phone back into your, because it's -30, -35, you don't want to get frost bites. So all these pictures have to be taken like super quick. And the phone, most of it is on the phone after base camp. So it has to be near your body to keep warm, to let the battery stay. So Everest taught me unexpected things can happen anytime to do with weather, people, or equipment. We saw all the examples. We saw the weather example at the end. We saw the people example, the main guide going away, the Sherpas running away, and so many other wicked things happen which I don't have the time to talk about. And equipment, of course. It can threaten your life or limb. You can't have a plan B for them because they are unexpected. What lets you overcome such danger is a calm approach to trouble. I will speak about it in one more lesson, which is the next one. It's a little bit of a oxymoron, if you like, make friends with fear. What do you really mean, So what I mean really is, if you think about it, all the complex missions, business, student, motherhood, is about managing risk. And if you broadly divide risk, what are the two broadest categories you can do? Known risk, unknown risk. So known risk is the part where we say make friends with fear. So the risks that are known, like we were aware that you can have oxygen running out. You are aware that certain things can go wrong. Those are not the things to say, oh, हमारे साथ तो होगा नहीं, देख लेंगे, कुछ ना कुछ हो जाएगा. That's bullshit. क्या देख लोगे आप? What will you देख लेंगे? Right? So there is no such thing as not being scared. You have to be scared of what is realistically a threat. And being scared of a threat doesn't mean you're about to give up. That only means that you are going to be very robust in your preparation. You're going to be error-free. You're going to be like leaving no stone unturned because you are aware of it. And on Everest, yes, you are a little bit more serious because you know it very well that it can cost you your life. But the threats can't be ignored or wished away. They have to be accepted, prepared for, and actions taken as required. And the other part of the risk, the unknown part of the risk, are within the purview of this lesson 5, which is expect the unexpected, because these are known, these are things which you don't know can happen. So that ability to believe that something will happen now and then, and when it happens, it is expecting the unexpected. So therefore, I am not going to be thrown off balance. Therefore, I am not going to give up. And I will not waste time in cursing whoever else and blaming somebody else. I'm going to put all my energy, every speck of blood in my body will fight that problem. Because I already knew something can go wrong. And when they go wrong, then you fight it out. There's no point, left, right, and why did this happen to me? मेरा किस्मत खराब है, मेरा whoever teacher खराब है, parents खराब है, manager खराब है. होते हैं खराब. I'm not saying खराब नहीं है, but that's a part of the deal. That's the lay of the land you're navigating. There's nobody owes us something very easy to say, okay, you know what, we'll keep jhadu maroing your path and you please come and go climb the Everest or climb whatever else you want to climb. Not going to happen like that. So make friends with fear. And the last one, this one I added later on after the first few talks happened and people were like, what's your message to students and anybody else? So this is pretty much the last lesson. And I realized there, I gave you the example of this. What do I mean by time is oxygen? So time in life, for all of us, is the most limited resource. We all know that very well. On Everest, there is a physicality to it because there are 6 cylinders of oxygen. And when you leave for the summit that night, you have 3 cylinders on your, total 3. And after that, no amount of money, no amount of power, nothing can get you more. It's between you and the mountain, it's your 3 cylinders. And if you are waiting around too long, you're looking around, you're resting too much, oxygen to chal raha hai. So in life also, time to chal raha hai, baba. Aapko idhar-udhar dekhne ka, time waste karne ka, time to chal raha hai. So at some point, the oxygen will run out. And if you are not back to camp by that time, well, on Mount Everest, there are no second chances. It's only the consequential discipline of whatever you didn't do. And the consequential discipline on Mount Everest can mean the cost of your life. But I think there is a cost to all of those things in life too, which we don't realize because they happen in micro steps. You suddenly don't die by missing an appointment or by missing a deadline. But something else dies. The opportunities die. The ability to believe in yourself that you will do what you committed to do no matter what dies. Because you get a little bit easy about it. Kya hai yaar, kal ko chale jayenge, ho jayega, dekh lenge types, All of this nonsense about work-life balance. I mean, there is a work-life. I'm not saying there's no work-life balance. But that doesn't give you a license to be easy going about things. Because time is oxygen and there is a fixed amount of oxygen. I'm just reading it out from this book now. Every climber has on Everest. And, once we are above 8,000 meters in the death zone, even if we are not moving, oxygen is running. We need to keep going and reach camp before oxygen runs out. In life, the clock is ticking regardless of what we are doing. Time in life is like oxygen on Everest. We have a fixed amount and it keeps moving even if we are not. That's my last slide. I'm using a quote from some very important people. To push oneself within a wisp of death and return to the valley in the world below is to see life in its raw immediacy. Now, when you say, okay, what did you learn? How did it change you because you went to Everest, etc.? I think how it changes you is to modify your relationship with risk, modify your relationship with uncertainty, modify your relationship with yourself because you've actually passed certain tests which you saw and therefore now you have the confidence, yaar, kuch bhi aega, kar lenge, yaar, hum kar lenge, deal ho jayega. You have that, what I call incorrigible optimism to say, I can deal with it, I'll do it, something will happen. And this last line, I think you can read, I hope, but I'll read it out for you. Usually we think that brave people have no fear. The truth is that they are intimate with fear. Thank you very much, dear friends.
Thank you, Aditya, for the truly insightful and thought-provoking presentation. Aditya, I'll ask you to come back here. Yeah. Your journey to the summit of Everest, and more importantly, the lessons you have drawn from it, offer profound reflections, and not just on adventure, but on life, leadership, and the relentless pursuit of excellence. You have reminded us that every summit, whether in business, personal growth, or any endeavor, is not just about reaching the top, but about the resilience, adaptability, and decision making that shape the journey. Your experiences speak to the fundamental human spirit, the drive to push boundaries, embrace challenges, and emerge stronger. In fact, when we sat before everything else, when Aditya just entered in the afternoon, we decided that we would make this as interesting as possible. And I think Aditya stepped beyond the boundaries there as well. Thank you, Aditya, for the wonderful presentation. At this point, we now open the floor for questions and reflections. This is an opportunity for all of you to engage directly with Aditya to explore deeper insights and from his journey and to connect the learnings to your own aspirations. I invite you to share your thoughts, ask questions, and make this an enriching exchange of ideas. Please raise your hand, introduce yourself briefly, and keep your questions concise so that we can accommodate as many as possible. The best question for the day will be selected in consultation with the speaker, and you stand to win a special gift courtesy of M Associates, which is a fly dining experience by Horizon at Grand Hyatt Bamboli for a couple. So let's begin. Who would like to ask the first question?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a hand right here in the front.
Hello.
Okay, there's somebody with the mic. Okay, fantastic.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
I'm Pankaj Jain, and I just want to ask कि इस तरह का कुछ आप करते हैं जो बिल्कुल आपको आउट ऑफ द लाइफ एक एक्स्ट्राऑर्डिनरी एक्सपीरियंस मिलता है, तो कभी कभी होता है ना, जिंदगी एक बार एक पल के लिए जी जाती है, उसके बाद जो कुछ है बस वो गुजर रही है, कट रही है. तो इस तरह का एक्सपीरियंस आपको होता है क्या कि आपने एक बार समिट को जिया और इसके बाद आगे उसकी मेमोरीज है या फिर वो लाइफ में अभी तक रिफ्लेक्ट होता रहता है?
No, not at all.
We have a little more sound on Aditya's mic.
Is it working now? Yeah. No, at least मेरे को तो नहीं होता है. You know, as they say, सितारों के आगे जहां और भी है. But I think it is an endeavor. There is, and you can see that in most of the people. It is not something which is, it is a journey of, yeah, the format of it changes, you know, you get into different ideas, you get into different kinds of goals and motivations. Right now I am, for example, working with a lot of other people, trying to help, you know, smaller companies, mentoring them, or, you know, my thrill has become to see other people succeed in whichever best they can. But somehow there is that restlessness to keep on doing more than what is within comfort zone, keep on, you know, making sure that you are not going to be complacent about any of these things. And the format of the ideas of it might change, but I don't think the primary grain of a human being really changes. I am not sure I've met anybody who changes, you know, intrinsically like that.
So you are going for next peaks in other fields of life?
I would like to, yeah, that's one way to articulate it, even if they're not peaks, but they're endeavors.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think we need to give time for somebody else. There's a hand raised right here. Could you have a mic there, please? A young boy.
Hi, good evening, sir. My name is Shivank. I am from Porvorim Gyanvika School Standard 6. Today my question for you is, what difficulties you faced during climbing the Mount Everest, and which diet you have to follow before going to this trek?
So I think the difficulties and ideas we already went through the whole trek. The diet, yes, I actually, in fact, did consult a nutritionist in my journey towards preparation of it.
So I am not a nutritionist, but it is the most obvious common sense stuff, which is, obviously you lose weight, you build muscle, you don't eat certain things, especially sweet stuff, especially sugary stuff. I generally speaking I am not a smoker or an alcohol drinker, maybe socially with friends or sometimes a drink, but so I'm fortunate to not have many things to give up. In general, my way of living is kind of more on the right side of things. Yeah, but this is a question to answer in a couple of seconds.
Absolutely, I think so too. Do we have another question here? We've got many hands raised. You're getting a mic to you first. Please introduce yourself first, because if you have to win the prize, we need to know who you are.
Okay, good evening. I'm Professor Dr. Rajiv Narwekar. I'm a bit of adventure enthusiast, and as you said, 2014, I was at Everest Base Camp, and there was no one at that time because expedition had been called off. Anyway, my question to you, I have two questions. First is, as you also must be aware, the famous answer by George Mallory, when he was asked, why did you do it? So my question will be, why did you do it, and where the idea got into? Because the question is very profound, and you must have realized by now. A lot of people do ask, why did you do it? Okay, where did the idea set into it for you to go ahead with this?
In fact, when I read that thing that I wrote in my book, when I was at the summit already, I said my goal was to prove to myself what ordinary people can do with passion and preparation. But many of these things actually emerge later on. You don't have a very precise why am I doing this in the beginning. You get into a field, like I got into adventure and mountain climbing and trekking. My first trek was Pindari Glacier in 1987. So once you get into a field, then there are certain things which are at the upper limit of that idea, So if you get into sport, you want to be playing for your country, you are in arts or you are in music, you want to, earn certain awards. And if you make a filmmaker, you want to get to the Oscars. So I think Mount Everest is a little bit like Oscar of adventure. And it is also a thing for someone like me who would like to ask myself, what is it that you can't do? Why is it why should it be such a big deal? So there isn't a precise why, it's just a part of who you are. And many of these whys kind of get created as you do things. And in fact, I would like to share that message to everybody. It's not about evaluating all the time, like, why should I do this? Why should I do that? Some of these whys get answers along the journey. Something is challenging, something is, worth it. Why is it worth it? It sometimes is answered in retrospect. Wisdom in hindsight, where in the earlier time you can't say, oh, this is the reason, these are the 5 reasons, I've documented it. So if I get killed for these 5 reasons, I'm okay. It's hard to, it's a fluid situation. Your internal conversations are the most difficult and the most engrossing conversations. And especially on the Everest, actually, you have that all the time. All the time in the world you have with yourself. There's no phone, nothing. There's no family either. There's no friend. There's no watching movies. There's no going to a drink. You're pretty much in this whole thing, and many are just climbing by yourself because it's like, so you're talking to yourself.
Namaste, sir.
Yeah.
Namaste, sir. My name is Bhagyajyoti Naik. I just want to ask you, did you ever get a thought or a curiosity to find a ghost or a spirit on the Mount Everest?
In fact, I didn't, because I am quite clear about that these things are not a part of at least my mindscape. There are people who believe in it. In fact, I can tell you about a very interesting video on YouTube if you want to go and check it out. It's called The Dark Side of Mount Everest. But no, I am not given to that part of the line of thought.
So considering that, I think Aditya has been very, very clear about whatever he wanted to say, we're going to keep the number of questions now to the last 2. So we have one in the front here. The gentleman's been raising his hand all the time. So could we have one mic here, please? Mic's already given there? Yeah, okay. Okay.
Namaste.
Yeah.
Namaste. Myself is Vaishali Anand Vachasundar. I would like to know when your guide and that Sherpa is disappeared at the end of your achievement. What the thoughts in your mind? And the second, I would like to know whether to achieve this climb, the yoga and pranayama is useful to you or not?
So the first part about the guide and the Sherpa, yeah, there is disappointment, but when you're in the middle of a war-like situation, there is no time to brood over ideas, to complain. And who will you complain to anyway? And what are you complaining about? So it is the time to get going, do it. In any case, the guide was not going to carry me in his arms or something. So these are things which are, there, and you make all these arrangements. But you will see so many times that, these things which you thought will be your support systems actually don't finally turn out to be support systems in certain parts. Having said that, whether it's my guide or my Sherpa, even though they were not there at the very last sort of, what you say, the climax of the deal, but they were there for so many other weeks, so I can't take away any broader credit from them. I was able to climb because of these people. Yes, I wish they would not have left, but at the same time, look at this. I mean, it actually enhanced my experience, enhanced my confidence. I could make it even without them. I kept going even without them. So, it tells you that you can do it actually. And had they not left me, I would have never experienced that part. So maybe it was a good way. And yoga and pranayama, yes, of course, they are good things. I am an intermittent sort of a practitioner of those things. In my younger times, I used to. Now I feel a little bit more about more physically demanding stuff. I do yoga if I have a certain specific issue with some joint or something like that. Mostly it's, gym or activity or swimming, kayaking. In Goa, it's mostly swimming and kayaking, but,
So we have many hands raised. Has anybody got the mic already? Yeah, okay, please.
Hi, my name is Anita, and I'm a mother. And I truly believe that as a role of a mother plays an important role in what you dream of, especially about overcoming fears. And from your attitude all along your climb, I find that those are qualities that you displayed which were inculcated in you, possibly as you're growing up. What was your mother's role in this for you growing up?
I think you already said what the role is, and I completely agree with you. And my mother is right here. So, thanks to her, and my father is right here. So there is no question about, parents have the massive amount of influence, even though sometimes it's not so obvious. But you can't take that away, and so you already answered the question. I have nothing more to add. You can't emphasize it enough. There is every single thing, every small thing, from taking care, at the same time to letting you fly away. I mean, my mom and my wife both had sort of a veto power over this whole expedition. They could have said, no, you're not going, boss. Please give up the idea. But they let me go. So the amount of bravery it takes from them to let you go is actually a magnitude of difference higher than you were taking your own thing, but they are giving up on you without even having they can't do anything if something goes wrong, and they're still letting you go. And they could have very well asked you to not go, and I wouldn't have at least these two people, definitely my parents and my wife would have the veto power on. But they've all been always very supportive. This whole in our family is like, okay, go fly. And as I said earlier, when I gave you the example of the helicopter accident and the people dying, I personally also very much believe that life and death is partly destiny. You can't always plan, how you will live, how you will die. So it's okay. You have to take it up. And my parents, fortunately, have never resisted the idea of us doing something. And I think that also works for business. It works because, it's not only climbing Everest, etc. Anybody who's an entrepreneur, so many of them are here, they could be doing other kind of thing which have a safer income generation, which have, a less challenging career path. So it's all over.
So before we go any further, I think all of us should join in and give Aditya's mom and dad a big hand here, and a big hand to every mother in the audience. Absolutely. I am being told that we are on the last two questions, even though Aditya wants to go on for the rest of the evening, but we are on the last two questions. The first one's here because the gentleman's already got the mic. Can we have you, please?
Well, my name is Dr. Bandodkar. I'm a medical doctor by profession. I've done a bit of an adventure sport in my life, and I do have a bit of a perspective in this. I just, if I, sorry, if I have a say in this organization, and particularly the moderator, and he made a mention that I raised my hands 3-4 times, which made me a little conscious. But sir, there should be some method in how the questioners are picked up, and it is so much haphazard, and it just puts you off in that. I hope my comment is not taken in a correct perspective. Aditya, it was really like a dream, as if I was in a dream, and then some of these images you can get only in the dream, because we have seen aeroplanes, we have seen mountain tops, we have seen Mount Titlis and the snow, but we have not been there actually against these hard circumstances. What I want to ask you is this. I would put in a nutshell the message what you said. It is the Mount Everest within you and all of us within which one has to conquer. And it is the resilience, the state of mind, the tenacity, the ability to believe in yourselves. And as you said, lastly, the spirituality, the blessings of your well-wishers, your parents, which gives you a very special niche in doing things what you did in life. And I'm sure you are a changed person now. After what you were, before you were in Roorkee, and then you got inducted inside this particular so-called hobby or a passion, and then it went on happening and happening, and there you were. Now the question is this. I know that you have changed quite a lot as a person, and you have become more empathetic towards the society. I also researched that you are responsible for 3,000 and odd workers under you by virtue of your business. Did your style of business really change, in the sense, are you really little different towards your business style and empathetic towards those families under whom, those families who work under you? In other words, you can also take a corollary to this question. Is there a tendency of a lot of mountaineers and an extreme sports specialist to turn towards some sort of an NGO type of businesses, or you may say social impact businesses? This is one. And my second question is, you made a mention about Sherpas, but I felt that all along they were a little undermined. And it looked that Sherpas actually are almost like a pilot of an aeroplane or a captain of a ship. If it sinks, probably they would kill themselves and save you. Are they really seen this in this particular eyesight? That is one thing which I wanted to know. And how strong are the Sherpas, how integrated they are as people? Because you didn't really give too much of an importance to the Sherpas. Thank you.
So let me start in the reverse order. I think you probably have missed out the part which I mentioned to the lady when she asked me that how come they left, and I mentioned specifically that even though they were not there at the very end, but they were there for all those weeks, and I would not have made it without them. So there's no question that there is a critical role that they play in various ways. Like in any other community, whether it's Sherpas or people around you, there are good and bad. So there are some very heroic ones who would definitely do what you said, will probably, do whatever it takes to save you. But there are also of the other kind, which are actually unfortunately more in number when you go there and you see it, who would not really, go out of their way to do anything for you. In fact, it's quite the other way around. After Camp 2, as you become more and more vulnerable, the attitude of Sherpas towards you, in reality, unfortunately so, but it's truth, gets very, very aggressive. And part of it is also to egg you on, but it's not always very supportive, let's put it that way. Now, the first part of your question, but once again, is not to take away what they do for you, but let's not assume it's only the good stuff. Having said all of that, without them, it's impossible, which is why when I said in 2014, when they went on strike, everybody had to essentially come back. There was no climbing that season at all. And this is hundreds of people from around the world who paid 40, 50, 70. I mean, the American expeditions, people with foreign guides, etc., this is $80,000, $90,000. And preparation of a whole year of work. And people have actually, most of the people who are climbing Mount Everest are not really moneyed people. So I have met people who've sold their lands and apartments to come and climb Mount Everest. And now here there are the Sherpa that whole year, in fact. Personally, if you ask me, there was no reason to be on strike. I mean, if you join the army, you can't complain about dying. So if an avalanche tragedy kills 16 Sherpas on day one, how does that justify them sending everybody back home? They prepared, they spent the money, they made sacrifices, and now you're saying, no, we'll not go there. What is this? What for? I mean, can the army refuse to fight if somehow the first night only a bomb happens and 100 people get killed? They say, no, we are not going to do the army job anymore. That's not done. So there are all kinds of people. The first part about being a business person and about how that changes you. So you asked me two questions around it. How does it change you, and does it change your empathy around other people? And do people get into NGO kind of jobs? About the NGO kind of jobs, I am not so sure. I don't think that happens because of this. Some people are already doing that and they continue to do that. Around empathy, I would think personally, we do tend to be very, very positive on people. And, we are in a business, we make rugs, so we have thousands of people. Please don't be too impressed, 3,000 people and all, because of the handmade business. That's why we have so many. Otherwise, it's a small business. But about how it changes you, that's the very important part. And I think the most important part to give up for an entrepreneur, especially a founder and, small business owner and all of those things, is the idea of how indispensable you are yourself. Like, मेरे बिना तो होगा नहीं, मुझे ही करना पड़ेगा यार, सब कुछ तो मतलब मैं नहीं हूं तो कुछ नहीं. You are gone for 2 months. You're not even in communication. Nothing fell apart. Everything was running. Everything was fine. So actually it helps you to recognize that is not entirely only you who's running the show, really. So that obviously brings along with it a lot many other things. It brings also freedom for yourself, because sometimes you are a slave of your business. Many years ago, I met a fellow traveler in Germany. I was just starting to do business, and we were in a youth hostel, and he said, oh, you own a business? And I was 23 years old, and early part, I didn't have money to stay in hotels, so I was. So he said, you know what, my brother is a business person, and what I tell him is that you think you own the company, but the company actually owns you. Because I am here, and he was a bartender. So, and I remember this story. Can you imagine? This is from 1993, I'm telling you, 31 years ago. Now, I'm a bartender, I get $18, he was an Australian. I get $18 an hour, I work for 6 months, and then I go away, travel the world for 6 months. I'm like, yaar, ye badhiya hai yaar, 6 mahina you're making drinks in a bar, and then you get so much money that you travel the world. And then he was almost looking down upon his brother to say, he's a business person, he can't go. Because he thinks he owns the company, but the company actually owns him, because everything he does is for. So these are different things that happen, and realities of the sacrifices what entrepreneurs have to do in return for privileges of entrepreneurship, the freedom, the gains, all of those things. So yes, it is a profound impact. And I hope I answered your question satisfactorily.
So before we go any further, I'd like to tell Dr. Bandorkar that we will certainly take up your issue that you've raised, that the questions are not being asked properly. But I'm sure 14 Kosambi festivals, the Art and Culture Department has been trying their best to do what is the best for you. In fact, we are very proud to have our Minister Ji sitting here with us, Govind Gaudi Ji. Thank you so much for being here with us. And we must also understand that the questions asked sometimes, you're given the opportunity to ask a single question, but very often the question is multiple, as it was with you. There were 4 or 5 questions asked. But unfortunately, now this is the last question, because I'm being given a strict instruction. You're out of time already. So the last question, I don't know who has the mic right now.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah. Good evening, sir.
Gupta. I'm Colonel Dr. Parag Prabhudesai, ex-Indian Army. Congratulations, first of all, for what you have achieved. Okay. I am fortunate to have served in a very high altitude area, and presently I am a marathoner. By virtue of this, I could understand your lecture little better. And a predictable, unpredictable lifetime. I have come across 2 sets of people, 2 different mindsets. One believes he shapes up their destiny through hard work, proper planning, calculated risk, and they achieve their goal. And then there are people who are reconciled to the fact, कि yes, especially whatever they get bad, कि yes, that is my destiny. And sometimes any unfortunate, unpredictable things, when it, just a minute. Just I'm finishing it. I'm finishing it. You're slowing down my flow. So in this particular case, what is your take about these two mindsets?
I would like to clarify that when I said destiny, and I thought I was pretty clear, it is only about life and death. It's not about your achievements. It's not. I have been emphasizing preparation, passion, focus, one step at a time. I've been resilience. All these things don't come from destiny. They are driven internally. The destiny piece I mentioned because of certain kinds of risks you have to accept that they are there. You know, as I said right in the beginning of the example, the people who died in that plane crash were not the people inside the plane. And by the way, Lukla airport is considered to be the most dangerous airport in the world. People who've been to EBC, they know what I'm talking about. So the plane में कोई नहीं मरा, वो बंदा बेचारा साइड में खड़ा हुआ, 2 पुलिस वाले मर गए. अभी क्या बोलेंगे उसको, डेस्टिनी तो नहीं है तो क्या है? So I want to be very clear that this is not to do with your destiny is not a substitute for effort and hard work and diligence and everything else that it takes to succeed or not succeed. Having done everything else, then at some point you have to say, okay, now it's the Almighty, it's the destiny, it's other things. So not 100% in control, but as you know, the best example I've heard of this is that sometimes it's the rope you have, but you still have to graze the grass. No, it will not come and fly into your mouth.
Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think it has been indeed a wonderful evening, and I think we need to give the gentleman a round of applause, which actually shows him that we've really enjoyed the evening. And I think it's been a great talk. Thank you so much, Aditya. I'd like to hand over back to the MC. Sorry? The best question, Aditya, I'm going to have you give us which was the best question. This is more difficult than the climbing of the Everest, I'm sure.
Oh, well, you should have warned me that I am supposed to be the judge of that.
No, I said that in the beginning. Anyway, no.
You are the organizer, you should judge.
No problem. See, he's thinking more than anything else.
There is no best or worst. People are curious, they would ask something, but I would go to the extent of saying that, something that helped me clarify a very good point.
Which was?
Was in fact the last question, because this whole idea about destiny, and he said very rightly so, that you can divide the broader public into these two groups. Because, the rest of it is about diet, about, all of these other regular stuff. But a larger question about life is about what is going to be your attitude. And I didn't want, and thank you, sir, that you didn't let my conversation somehow make anybody believe that it's destiny which lets you get things done. No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that at all. I don't believe that at all. I love to work hard. You will not believe the schedules that I run, not because I need anything out of anything, but I just feel that it's a gift to be able to work. It's a blessing that you have something to do and you have the endeavors in your mind and your soul. So destiny helps, but it's not the answer to your endeavors.
Thank you, Aditya. And I think, can we invite Colonel to come up here? As you are the winner today. I know the bigger winner today is Mac Waz, because he is always for our forces. And when the Colonel comes up, he definitely is smiling. I can see Mac smiling there. Can we have can I call on Samira Seth, who is an art writer and curator, to be on stage and present the gift to the winner on behalf of M Associates this evening. I also see the powerful M of M Associates here. Good evening, Marusha.
So, sir, the Colonel Saab wants the prize to go to the young boy who asked the question.
Wonderful. I think that is also giving you so much of a thought process towards our defense forces. Colonel, thank you so much. Can we have the boy come up here? Ladies and gentlemen, I think you need to give Colonel a bigger round of applause than that. for his magnanimity. And now I think I hand over back to the MC for the evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sri Aditya Gupta ji, for recounting your experiences on climbing the Everest. It was really exciting and inspiring as well. You also gave us so many take-home messages that will be really useful for all of us. Thank you for everything. We also thank Dr. Earl Brito for accepting our invitation, for moderating the session and having conducted it so wonderfully. Thank you so much. We have with us Honorable Art and Culture Minister, Shri Goan Gavdeji. Sir, kind request to come on stage. Shri Sagun Velip sir, kindly escort our Honorable Minister. And a kind request to Honorable Minister, sir, to present mementos as token of our love to Shri Aditya Gupta, today's speaker. Thank you. Sir, please present memento to Dr. Earl Brito as well. And a gift hamper too. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Honorable Minister, sir. Let me remind you all, tomorrow we have with us Padma Shri Nivedita Bhide, Jeevan Vrati. She's a life worker and All India Vice President of Vivekananda Kendra, Kanyakumari. So please be seated at 4:45.